But nevertheless, that's what she did. Now, we all know about the controversy in that situation, right? Her and Wendy were going at it. And she was in her I don't like Wendy mode because she was upset about Wendy and things that Wendy had said in past seasons, and more in particular about the situation with her and Juan. She felt that, oh my gosh, that she thought her and Wendy were really cool, and for her to go after the situation with her and Juan in the last season, that was just, a bridge too far. Never mind that Wendy probably felt ganged up on about her situation with that ridiculous rumor about Eddie, getting with someone and getting her pregnant, and Gizelle was going after that. And of course, Robin and Gizelle, they worked together, and so she was probably saying things and questioning things, and Wendy, feeling like really totally offended about the situation, told her about herself along with telling Gizelle about herself, and the emphatic takedown that was last season. So there was still the animosity about that. She felt that, you're not a supporter of me. We're not really friends. So, you're not going to be a part of anything. And that was kind of a running theme, right? But part of the fun day situation is, if you don't want Wendy to go, then you're ostracizing the children too. And what are you doing here? So, Robin says she's petty. So at the end of the day, she did not want anything to do with Wendy, but she had no issues with the children being there. So she thought that it would be a cool idea talk to Candice, and Candice basically say, hey, look, I'll take the kids. So I guess Candice has now become onto Candice, and she'll take the kids to the fun day. Now we all know that was not going to go down like anything, and even Candice knew that. I know Candice talked about it with Wendy, but she's basically said in her confessional that, hey, Wendy's going to tell her where she can go underneath where she could go. And so all of us know that wasn't going to work. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not right, right? And what harm would it have done to allow Wendy to go to the event? You guys all filmed together. What was said, I mean, I'm sure worse has been said, okay? So, give me a break. It was not that serious. And, so that was basically how that went down. And we all know that wasn't going to go down. And whatever Robin was thinking, she should not have been thinking, because it did not work in her favor. And a lot of us felt that way about it. It was just really stupid. Okay, so I think that about wraps up mostly what was going on in that segment. And I think at that point, then Charrisse did exit stage left. And like I said, it was a very warm exit, and it was fun and all that good stuff. And at that point, then we're clipping on into basically a break, right? And I love when they do those behind the scene moments, where we get to see a little bit what's going on, right? Like Charrisse getting her hair done and getting that commentary when the show starts and what's going on with them as they're getting ready and stuff like that. I love those little tidbits. I think it adds to the reunion, actually. So, we are now focusing on the men, because the men are about to hit the stage. And of course, you have Eddie, Happy Eddie, which we love Happy Eddie, don't we? Eddie is he's just such a warm spirit, I think. He's fun. I love his marriage with Wendy. I think they have a beautiful family. Oh my gosh, the kids, her mother, everybody, the whole family is gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. Love them together. Love that whole situation. I love a successful running unit. And so I am here for them. I quite frankly, I could probably watch a show just on them. I love their family. I think they're really, really just a beautiful family. And so basically we know that the men that are going to pop up were basically Eddie, Gordon, and Chris at the moment, right? Because we didn't see Ray yet. But Eddie's basically asking Chris, how you feeling, how you think's gonna go, and Chris is kind of like, I'm fluid, and he's like, fluid, what does that mean? Because I don't know if this sounded good. But basically he's cool for the moment, but hey, he's got smoke for anybody that wants it. And maybe because Chris had a rough season, and we all know why. So we dipped into it in the last episode, right? In the last with the part 2 of the reunion. And so we're really going to get into it now, because now we're dealing with the confrontation. And gave Chris an opportunity to speak his piece. So the men get on out there, and again, we have Eddie, Gordon, Chris, and Ray. And we know we love Ray. I think they said Ray has been to every single reunion, which is wonderful. Of course, we know Michael and Ashley are no longer. At this point, I think they were getting to be no longer, but we all know what's going on, or we're being told is going on. And then honestly, Michael, even when they were married for at least a good 2-3 seasons, because he kept getting into trouble with producers and stuff, he hadn't been on every reunion show in quite some some time, so I'm kind of used to not seeing Ashley with anybody. And same thing with Gizelle. I don't think Gizelle has ever had anybody come on. If she did, it would have been in the early part of this seasons, and I don't know, maybe there might have been one time, but I'm not really sure. So there was nobody there, and yeah, and then of course Juan apparently was working and was not able to make the reunion. So, you know, maybe that was, you know, but I'm sure, you know, Juan does not really show a lot of his time on the show, so he probably was like, I'm not here for any of that. And plus too, with all of the behind the scenes things that are going on with Juan, he probably did not want to add any fuel to the fire. It's a very tenuous situation at best, and I'm sure he just wants to kind of stay out of that melting pot, let Robin handle it, and we'll just move forward from there. So that probably was the best bet for Juan's sake, and I'm pretty sure anyone involved in his situation and helping represent him would feel the same way. So yeah, so at this point though, this is really about focusing on the allegations from Gizelle towards Chris about feeling that she was uncomfortable, and I wouldn't say allegations, right? But that she felt uncomfortable with Chris, and that whole thing that really seemed like it could have been worked out from the get-go. We know there's been a lot of shouting back that, you know, this was something that could have been dealt with before, could have been talked about, could have been explained, could have been shared, but you waited till the cameras came on, right? And when the cameras came on, then it was like all of a sudden, you know, Chris is a monster, and that's really how it came across, because that's basically how it was being said. And there was a lot of things being talked about. Now, what we know about the situation, and even them two still don't agree on every aspect of the interaction, but that basically in the last reunion, there were some things that were being said. Chris was not happy about it, but Chris and Gizelle had a very cool relationship. Like, apparently they were really, really cool with each other, which kind of surprised me, because you know, Candice and Gizelle's relationship always seemed to be a bit tenuous to me, but you know, Chris seemed to be really cool with Gizelle, and he really liked her. And so I guess there was a situation where he's saying he wanted to talk to her, and you know, if they could talk, and she was cool because she didn't, you know, he had made a bit of a comment. They showed like kind of, you know, the hot mic moment, and she's like, "Are you mad?" You know, and I think she was really like shocked about whatever was said, and I don't even remember. But yeah, so yeah, she was cool. She said, "Yeah, cool, let's go." Now, what Gizelle basically shares that, you know, usually like it's a team of people, however many people that is, would normally be in the room, and they were going to the dressing room. Now, Gizelle says that he asked if they could go to the room. He says that he did not say that, but that Gizelle offered up to go and speak, you know, in the room. He doesn't know anything about her team and her feelings about her team being there or not. He's like, how would I know those things? You know, he had a little bit, you know, obviously a little bit to drink. He was, you know, I wouldn't say he was like drunk or anything like that, but you know, he's a little bit, you know, tipsy maybe, you know, they do like to have their drink out there on Bravo. And so then apparently, you know, Gizelle was like, you know, when she got into the room, whoever's supposed to be in the room was not in the room. And I guess with the fact that, you know, he had been drinking a little bit, she just felt uncomfortable, but it didn't seem to be much that took place. And she wanted an apology, right? And so everybody's still trying to figure out, what did he do? Because see, as you all know, and if you've been watching this show this season, Chris was dragged from one wall to another, okay? And this did bleed into his personal life, and he wanted to understand, because he would have never, in his eyes and in his mind, would he had ever done anything to harm Gizelle. And if there was an issue, tell him. And he, you know, he said, look, rightfully so, if you felt uncomfortable about me being in the space, that's fine. I didn't know it was an issue, but you could have just told me that, hey, we need to, you know, do this another time, or let's just go out and talk in the hallway. So whatever that whole thing, you know, was an issue. And they're both still kind of going back and forth with each other about really those details, right? But he's emphatic about that, you know, this is what he said, and she's emphatic about what she said and what happened, and that was that. And so as it's mulling over, you know, you're watching and you're listening, you're still trying to figure out what exactly did he do, because you want to know what he did, because when you're saying that I need him to apologize for what he did, I need to apologize for what he did, everyone's like, what did he do? You know, and yeah, if there's something going on here, yeah, that needs to be dealt with, right? We don't play around with SAs, right? We don't play around with that. So it gets to a point where Andy then kind of, as he's listening and all of us are listening and they're back and forth about it, when he comes to the realization is it that something that he did, or is it's how you felt? Because then what you're asking him to do is apologize for how you felt about something, but the way it's coming across is that he actually did something. So he, like Chris had said, 100% he is fine with the fact if you feel uncomfortable, that's your feelings, I will validate that. But I had to tell my family, I had to tell my kids, I lost money, I lost clients. I mean, and he got really upset naturally because you're accusing me of doing something that I would never, first of all, ever would have done. And now I'm having to have real life consequences because of things you said. And of course, there are the camps of people who feel like Gizelle was creating a storyline and making something huge about something that wasn't an issue in order to have a storyline. And of course, he was part of the carnage in that. And, so it's one of those things where, okay, so you want me to apologize for that, but that is something, again, that could have just been shared, right? So it got really ugly, right? If you had saw it, it got really ugly. The back and forth really did. And of course, there was things that Gizelle had said during the season, calling him quite some name, like she called him a sneaky link and stuff like that. And she had said, you know what, I apologize for that. I shouldn't have said that. Because at the end of the day, that's not what she felt. She just had felt uncomfortable. And she also, I think, had mentioned, if not in the last episode, the part 2, that she felt that Candice had made a bigger deal about the situation. She was the one that blew it up. And I don't believe that Candice blew it up. All I saw was the flashbacks of multiple flashbacks of Gizelle speaking on the situation, and then it kind of snowballed into a situation because, of course, Ashley with her friend, who we all are not believing anything her friend said, because we got to see footage for ourselves of times that things were supposed to be said to her, and her name was Deborah, and that didn't happen, point blank period. And so her credibility is shot. And so at the end of the day, she feels that, hey, Gizelle says, look, we're talking about, DMs that were put out there and stuff like that. And so it just seemed like it was a pattern and, oh, this must be a thing. So let's make this a thing. And, we go back to in that conversation where Ashley is showing, what did during the, they did flashback to it too, about text message where, Chris was inviting the ladies because see, he's really cool with the ladies, right? So, he's just inviting them, hey, you should come down to the W or wherever he was working at the time. And according to Ashley, she didn't realize that was part of his job. Basically to get people to come and hang out. And, we all know each other. Hey, we're doing great things over here, having a good time, whatever, come check us out, whatever. That's the way he felt, and that was his intention. And of course, Ashley then shares, I didn't even know that was your thing. Again, another opportunity of miscommunication, and there we have it, miscommunications and some lies, like from Deborah, and a situation that really took on legs being with Gizelle. So, he did try to apologize. Candice was not having it. Candice is very angry. And, but Chris was like, okay, I can accept the apology. Candice is not accepting the apology, right? Because Gizelle did apologize for the sneaky leak comments and stuff like that. She felt that, Gizelle is only saying something because of the timing, because she was wrong. And then Candice proceeded to let Gizelle have it. And I had to watch this twice, y'all, because it was just, woo, yeah. She went in like Candice does, and she let her know exactly how she felt. And she basically said, you and your privilege feel like you can say whatever you want to say, and that you can get away with that, and that is okay. But yet you are literally, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of it, but that you are literally destroying people's lives, and that's okay. And so then we are now resurrecting the conversation about the colorism situation. And, of course, as she's going in on how she feels about her and her being Gizelle, you know, Mia's like, oh, okay, hold on, and Ashley's like, oh, okay, wait a minute, whoa, you know, now you're going like, okay, that's not right, that's not fair. This basically saying that you're using your light skin privilege to say and do whatever you want. Everybody will believe you, and it's no problem, it's no issue, and it's okay. You could just destroy somebody's life like that. Now, here's the deal. You know, in part 2, if you had watched part 2, they did have a conversation where they did go into some of the aspects of the colorism. Some would say that a longer conversation should have been had. Maybe a whole hour special talking about it could have been had. I am actually surprised, but I am glad that they actually approached the conversation. Like I shared that in the part 2, that hopefully I'll be able to get that out to y'all. And there was obviously an opportunity for Candice and Wendy to share their thoughts and feelings about things that they experienced on the show throughout the season. Now, here's the thing. With Ashley, you know, she basically is now somewhat chastising Candice about, you know, didn't we just talk about this and we just had this conversation and now you're saying this, and do you think that's okay? Do you feel like that doesn't, you know, the rules, so to speak, of how we need to be mindful of what we say and how we do, that doesn't apply to you? Now, here's where I have an issue with Ashley at. The bottom line is, for Candice, this is what her reality is, right? This is what she felt. This is how she felt. This is what she says. This is what was going on for her. And the bottom line is, there was many instances that occurred for them that was in line with the colorism situation, okay? And the conversation about the colorism in part 2 was not a very long conversation, and wasn't one that was filled with many examples. Not even all the examples, right? I think she may have mentioned an example and then it kind of tore off into a little bit of something else. But this would have been an example. So therefore, if they had more time to talk about it, this could have rolled right on into the conversation. So I kind of feel like, from Ashley's perspective, that maybe what she is saying would be maybe applicable, I guess. You know, if this was an event that happened outside of the season. But this was all about it. This was more of the fallout of it. So what she said is what she said. And I don't know about y'all, but I knew she meant what she said. And the bottom line is, that's a reality for people. Like she stated a little bit later, you know, sometimes, you know, people of darker skin can make a conversation or have the same kind of allegation. They're not believed or they're not trusted. That is something that happens. And so I felt that in this moment, I needed Ashley to step back. I get it, what she was trying to say, but that is a moment moving forward. You are talking about something that happened within this season. And so therefore, this applied. And, you know, and Wendy, you know, coming out to try to be as diplomatic as she could be and wanted to reach Candice because Candice was hot, right? And she says, look, Candice, you know, I understand that you're upset and I understand what's going on, but, you know, again, we want to go, you know, just be mindful of, you know, this and that in regards to the colorisms, right? Well, Candice said, and I'm looking at the screen, and I don't know about y'all, but I looked at her and said, Candice meant everything she said. And that's that, you know. And Candice said that. She goes, I receive what you say, but I feel how I felt. And this is what it was. So, you know, I just feel like, yeah, these are the being mindful and understanding and using those practices that they discussed in part 2 will be very helpful, right? Because enough is enough already, right? It does exist and it needs to stop, okay? But when you bring up instances that happened this season after the conversation, then yeah, that's some of the aftermath in that season. It should still be addressed. And she stood by what she said. So, you know, it is what it is. Gizelle, I think, was a bit shocked. Or maybe she wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what she was thinking or how she was feeling. But it was a lot of feeling and passion behind it. And that's that, you know. But it looks like Chris is, you know, he's at least accepting of the apology, but I do feel like, you know, Chris is going to stay really clear from Gizelle. And it's really unfortunate that they're in a situation like this because there was a time when they were really, really close. And then, you know, of course, Candice even went further to say, you know, you're the reason why women who find themselves in these situations don't come out and speak, because, you know, they may not be able to be believed because you are taking a situation. This is Candice's thoughts, right? You're taking a situation and making yourself a victim when you're not, when this really happens to people who are really victims, right? And so, you know, every situation is case by case, and of course victims are to be believed. So there's that. So it was really, really a charged moment. I did not expect it to be anything light of that. I'm hoping that there will be some healing in that situation, but there's not going to be healing unless you are actually addressing the issues. And I think that a lot of that conversation between the ladies is going to happen off camera as well. It can't just be, hey, we're just going to talk about it or hit and miss it, you know, a little bit, touch on it, tiptoe around it, whatever, and the season keep moving on. No, this is a real issue now, and it really needs to be addressed. So hopefully they will be able to come to an understanding about how they're going to move forward, because honestly, with Gizelle, and I understand it, you know, Gizelle, you know, she's a messy person, you know, she loves the mess, but I think that she really might want to be reflective and taking a look at how she approaches some of these storylines in the future, because they do have real consequences. And no one's saying that she cannot feel the way she feels, because her feelings are validated. But there's a lot of mindfulness that needs to go on about how you address a situation. And are we addressing the situation in its factual state? Are we adding to it? Are we trying to make this bigger? Are we trying to create a storyline because we don't want to talk about anything that's going on in our lives? Or maybe we don't have anything going on in our lives, so therefore we're going to go ahead and make targets because we're trying to get somebody else on the show. And maybe if we make enough targets, enough people will say, hey, we don't want to be with this person, and maybe we won't film with them. You see how this goes? So yeah, but it was a very charged moment. And I guess we'll just have to see how things play out. But I think they're going to be very different dynamics there, because trust is broken. And yeah, that's kind of how that goes. And so, you know, as that segment started coming to a wrap and the men were excused, of course, everybody was very lovey with their husband-wife combinations. But Candice and Chris, you know, they're hilarious to me. They had their own like secret handshake, not so secret. But, you know, I hope that Chris was able to get out what he needed to get out. I hope that Gizelle was able to get out what she needed to get out. And hopefully, you know, they will be able to come to some closure, if you will, or something, so that way we don't have these kind of issues anymore, because this was a huge situation and it demanded to be addressed, right? And so hopefully Chris feels like he was able to get out what he needed to say, because like he said, Gizelle was able to talk about it the whole entire season. So but for I understand, he might have been saying some things too on the back end, on the outside of the show. But yeah, so everybody got a chance to say what they had to say and try to really delve into that situation. So that was that for that matter. And then kind of wrapping it up, you know, they started talking about the Real Housewives of Potomac Ladies After Dark. And that was crazy, because like, what? I mean, oh, the silliness and the buffoonery of it all, right? But it was nice to see that the ladies could get together and have a good time. But I guess as long as they got a little bit of tequila, they're good, and they can look and admire each other's lady parts, but yet can't seem to get along. So that was an interesting dichotomy. But there it is. And you know, Wendy took her self-proclaimed award for having the prettiest lady parts, and yeah, it was just crazy, y'all. It was crazy. But you know, at the end of the day, there was a lot of great moments for them on the trips. I think both of them, and as long as they were not at each other's throats about something or other. So yeah, that's kind of how it went. But I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to know what you thought about the reunion. All 3 parts is fine. If you want to drop those down in the comment section. Do you think that Mia and Jacqueline will be able to rekindle their friendship? Do you think CHARRISE is going to come back to next season? Do you think Gizelle and Candice can come to some kind of common ground where they'll be able to continue to film together? Do you think Gizelle feels bad about the situation, or do you think she's standing her ground and how she feels? Do you think Chris had an opportunity to just have his, you know, his say? And do you think that Monique may come back next week? Okay, next season. But go ahead and drop all those comments down below. I would love to know. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. And of course, I appreciate your viewing support. And if you are new here, yes, go ahead and subscribe. I would love for you to be part of the family here. I'm so happy with our community that we're building up here, and we would love to include you too. So go ahead and drop those comments. Make sure that you do subscribe if you are new here. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will please give it a like, and be on the lookout for part 2 and 1 that should have been out before, but you know, hey, I digress. And I do hope for you that you have a blessed rest of your day. And yeah, until next time, be safe, take care. Bye.